Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vasel and Sam Healey.
Hey folks, today we're joined with Zee Garcia.
What's happening?
Today we're taking a look at a game from Stronghold called Dark Moon, formerly known as Panic Station. No, I'm just kidding. This isn't the Panic Station, although the theme feels pretty similar. This game, as it proudly says on the bottom of the box, was formerly known as BSG Express, which means Battlestar Galactica, a game you may have heard of.
It really means Battlestar Galactica?
Well,
That's not what Bonacore said.
Anyhow, Battlestar Galactica Express BSG Express was a shorter version of Battlestar Galactica with dice that someone made online, so they printed it and changed the theme because of, well, licensing.
Yeah, because of suing.
Okay, so we have Dark Moon here. This is a game that is for 3 to 7 players, takes about an hour or more. I'd say an hour is pretty reasonable, and is about deception. Some of you are infected. Again, I keep getting that thing reference here.
Right,
something like that, and you have to figure out who they are. Let me show you. The first thing we need to talk about in this game is the dice mechanism. There are 3 types of dice in the game. There are weak dice and there are strong dice. There's also one commander dice if you're the commander, you have that person randomly is chosen to be commander at the beginning, but that can switch throughout the game. These are the 6 sides of each dice. You'll see that 4 of those sides are negatives. 3 negatives, 2, and -1, and then a 1 and positive 1 and 3 and a positive 2 and 4. These are called the weak dice and these are called the strong dice. But the fact is that they're all not great dice. This one's the same thing, except it's a +3, a +5. So each player is going to start the game with 2 of each dice. And as the game progresses, you will often do a task. Many times most of the tasks in the game require you to roll up to 3 dice. So you can roll up to 3 dice, and then you're going to pick one of those dice. Now usually picking a positive number is a completion. So I could put this and say, hey guys, that's a positive number. We completed the task. However, if I'm a bad guy, I can stick a -1 out and say, guys, I'm sorry, that's the best that I rolled. Because you roll these behind your shield. Now, it's very possible to roll all negatives, so you put one out and say, guys, that's the best I could do. And people are still going to suspect you because they don't know what you rolled behind your shield. Speaking of shields, each player is going to get a shield, and this is going to show their character card. They have a character card that matches this, which shows your special ability that you have throughout the course of the game. Each player is also going to be secretly giving a status card, which is going to tell you whether you are uninfected or whether you are infected. Once the game, at a certain point during the game, an infected might reveal themselves, at which point they're giving a new infected shield to use. Your shield has spots here for 4 dice in front of them. That basically just shows how many dice that you have to roll, and they also show the different things that you can do on your turn. Now, to win the game, players need to complete a final event. So they'll draw one of the final events. For example, this was the last stand. All right, they have to complete that one. But before they complete the final event, they have to complete 3 other events. The commander is going to draw 2 event cards, and they're going to pick which event is played, keeping the other one secret. You know, maybe they're a bad guy and they want a harder event. Each event has a certain number of times that it needs to be completed, and if it's completed, you'll put a cube on each of these and then go on to the next event, until you get to the final one. Now, on a player's turn, they have an action that they can do. There's different actions if you become infected, but if you are a normal player, you are trying to stop from losing. There are many ways that you can lose. You can lose if everyone is fatigued in the game. At certain points during the game, people are going to become fatigued, which will cause their card to flip over, and they won't be able to use their special ability, and you put out as many dice. If everyone is fatigued, all 6 of the characters are fatigued, then everyone goes into a coma, and the game is over. Over here, even more deadly, is the shield control. The shield control will be your shield will be damaged, and if your shield is completely full, then you lose. Also, every time you add more of these damage counters to the shield, you roll a dice, and if it matches the next symbol here, you will have to add more life support damage, where you randomly draw somebody and see who's fatigued. Or you'll add outpost damage. As you place these out here in the outpost, this will do different things. Here you can't issue an order. That's one of the actions you can take. Here there's life support, and you can't repair. Over here in the critical fatigue, you can't these will basically, as more of these come out, you won't be able to do different actions. So on a player's turn, they're going to, if they have fewer dice than the amount that they're supposed to have, they'll draw those. There'll be a pile of available resource here, and you can pick which dice you'd like to take into your pool. You can have up to 4 dice. Then you can take an action. So you can, roll up to 3 dice behind your shield, submit one of those dice, and say if that action fails or succeeds. Action can be getting rid of shield tokens over here, fixing part of the outpost that are breaking down, helping somebody who is fatigued, getting them off life support. You can even try to roll 3 dice and get 2 successes to go it alone and try to get another cube on the event card so that you can go through them faster. You can issue an order to somebody else. There really is quite a few different actions that you can take. They're all listed here. And one of the actions that you can do is you can call a vote on another player. Now when you do that, each player is going to vote to quarantine that player or not. If a player is quarantined, you place this here. They're down to 2 dice now, and their actions that they can take are extremely limited. When you vote, if you want the person to be quarantined, you're going to put out a red die. If you think that the person shouldn't be quarantined, you put out a black die. Of course, if you don't have either of one of those colored dice, then you can't vote that way, but you can always abstain and put out nothing. So you can vote and quarantine someone as one of your actions. You can reveal that you're infected. And so there's different things that players are attempting to do. But at the end of their turn, they're going to be drawing a task card. Now, there's 2 task cards decks in the game. These are going to be different based on the number of players, just like the number of infected are going to be different based on the number of players. And when at the end of your turn, you'll draw 2 of these tasks and pick one of them and put the other one down secretly. Again, you can pick an easier one, hopefully, if you are a good player, and a harder one if you're infected. These will tell you a difficulty. They'll tell you what happens if you fail it, like this one here will do 2 damage to the outpost. We'll draw 2 things to the outpost. This also does 2 damage to the outpost. Sometimes these tasks are not malfunctions. Basically, this one says if the commander gets a card to somebody else, then you complete it. And anytime you complete one of these successfully, you'll add another cube to the event, which might cause you to pull out more events and things. But there's different ones. Now these here, some of them also say suspicious activities. That will move this red cube down here, and when it gets here to the vote, then players must vote on somebody to quarantine them. Now these cards here are easier to complete, although you might have problem convincing somebody. Like this one here, the commander has to give their card to someone else. They may not want to. Or here, someone has to show you their status card. They may not want to. And so though those are easier to complete, but they can cause lots of tension and stress, but they're removed from the game when you get to the final event anyway. But let's say that we're doing one of these malfunctions. How does that work? Let's say the difficulty of the malfunction is a 6. So we place this black cube here to show that the difficulty is a 6. Then each player in turn order is going to declare whether they are in or whether they're out. If they're out, they get to pull 2 dice back, and you might be low on dice, so you may be forced to go out. If they're in, they're going to participate in this test. Now, each person participating in a test can roll their dice behind their shield, and they must, whenever they roll dice, submit a die. I'm like, ooh, I rolled a +4. So they put it here, and I just got 4. Now, of course, if you roll all negatives, you can say, guys, I'm really sorry, but all I rolled were negatives, and put out a negative die. Now, of course, you could be lying through your teeth, but that's up to you. But you always have to put out a die. Now, you may want to say, I'm going to roll again, but then you have to put out another die. All right, here I got a +1. And I roll again. Now I have to put out a -2. And that's going to move this up and down. You can stop rolling at any time, and if you roll multiple positives, you can put them out, or if you're infected, I guess you can put out multiple negatives, although that will convince people instantly that you're infected. But anyway, you can put these out, and after everyone's played, if this has reached it or not, then yay, the malfunction doesn't happen, and you put a cube on the event card and go on to the next person. And that's going to happen. That's going to continue. So that's how the game works, folks. You are going to keep going till you either complete the final event or till the bad guys win, which is usually going to be the shields failing, everyone going into a coma, or some other means by cards or what have you that will cause the infected to win. All right, well, it's shorter. That should appeal to you.
It does indeed appeal to me because it is shorter than Battlestar Galactica, the full game, but it still gives me that feeling of I can't quite trust you. I don't know who's trying to betray me. I like the vibe of the game, certainly, and I think the dice ultimately do a pretty good job, maybe not a perfect job, but a pretty good job of replacing the cards you would have in Battlestar, you know. Sometimes you really can't. Sometimes you are good, are trying to help, and just roll negative dice for everything. And you really...
And then you got to explain to everybody.
You really are, you know, you can't help it, you know, but... so I think it loses a little bit there, but the game needs that, otherwise there would be none of that mistrust, you know what I mean? In Battlestar with the cards, you can pretty much always help or always hurt when you mean to. In this game, sometimes your hand is forced. But I'll give that up for the 1 hour play and the speedy nature of the whole thing. I think it unfolds at a great rate.
Yeah, it does.
You know?
What do you think of, you mentioned the theming and stuff, what do you think of the components and theme of the game?
The theme is fine, I think. I would have probably... instead of going into a spacey type feel, maybe a thing, you know, the thing.
Well, it's kind of the same thing, I guess, on Titan.
It is, but I mean, I think it would have been cooler if they would have went with maybe more of the thing type theme. That sounds so similar.
It does.
The Thing, like the movie, the horror movie, the thing where they're in the base. And it's infecting everybody. I think theme would have been better than this sci-fi theme, but it's fine. That's a nitpick. The components were.
It has a thin thing theme, really.
Wow. Doesn't
it? Didn't you think so?
He's been working on it.
No, seriously, I think that
you were thinking about that.
No,
for a
yeah,
while,
I was a little bit.
You were.
No, but I actually do think that the theme of this one is thin. You don't think it's pretty thin?
It is. It's very thin. I just wish it was something else.
I like it. I like the space vibe going on. I don't like the cover. I don't necessarily love the graphic design on the board.
Actually, I think I like the graphic design because it has that
retro
thing.
Yeah, but then this cover, I don't know, it just doesn't fit that. You know what I mean?
No, it doesn't. The cover doesn't match
I don't
that.
get this cover at all.
I actually don't like the art either. The people, they look fake. I don't know how else to say it.
Right. But I like the component quality just fine. The dice are well made. I like the dice. They look good. They're clear. They're clean. The game is certainly very playable. I just don't like that cover. And the theme I like, though, but it's not particularly utilized, so it doesn't bother me either. It couldn't, you know.
All right, now, you love Battlestar.
Yes.
How does this compare?
It doesn't. There are similarities in how things play out, but as far as caliber is concerned, this is like a 22, and BSG is like a 357 or a 375. You know, there's a huge difference.
Okay, I actually don't get that, but...
Okay, well, you know the gun that Dirty Harry carried around?
Okay, yes.
And then a little Derringer? This is the Derringer.
All right.
Okay.
Do you feel that way too?
Probably, but I don't see it as a negative. And I could understand you're a big fan of BSG.
This will in no way, this probably replaces BSG for you. It will in no way even come close to replacing BSG for me.
Right.
Because there's such a much more rich experience with BSG than with this. This, if you have that itch, and you have a bunch of people like Zee that can only sit down and focus for an hour, yeah, bring this to a table.
Okay. I actually think that between this and Dead of Winter, I don't know that I will play Battlestar Galactica again.
Because you're wrong.
I feel, yes, I like the Battlestar Galactica theme better. I do. And I wish this was Battlestar Galactica, right? This theming. That'd been fine. But man, I played this and I thought, wow, I got the exact same feeling as I got from a 2.5 hour game of Battlestar Galactica.
Right.
I don't see what I was missing. I mean, there's some, okay, there was no robots invading the ship and, you know.
Yeah, you took a bite of the steak.
Yeah, but sometimes
You're
a bite
missing
is
the
all I
rest
need.
of the snake. The rest of the steak. That's what you're missing.
I think this game's going to appeal to a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
I think it will. I think it will do that despite the box cover theme. I think a lot of people are going to look at this and pass on
I
by.
thought this was hair. For the longest time, I thought that was the girl's hair.
It's a helmet, I guess. I mean,
It is. It's a helmet. That's a
there's
window.
a reflection in the helmet. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very, very bad cover.
Okay, well, but I do really enjoy it. Now, will I keep it? I don't know where I'm at that point. I do think it's a fun game, and I like that it goes up to 7 people,
Right.
and it takes not a long time. You can pull some people around. It's not hard to teach. The rule book could have explained things a little bit better, but I mean, it's easy to teach and say, okay, you have to get people used to the dice thing. Yeah. It's kind of weird that when you vote, if you don't have a certain color, you can't vote that way.
Right.
That's an unusual mechanic I haven't seen in another game.
That's one of the things where the dice depart from replacing the cards, because you could have had the cards that would help or hurt, and you can just say, I'm abstaining, period. But you have to make the choice before you roll the dice, I'm in or I'm out. And that's a little bit
But again,
of a difference.
both that mechanism where you might roll and get everything of what you don't want,
Yeah.
and the voting where you might not have the yes or the no die, are both things this game does to force your hand because it's 1 hour.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't mind that necessarily. Sometimes you get hosed, and I'm okay giving up that control because the game's going to be over sooner, and give me an experience in a tighter time
It
frame.
would really stink, though, to lose the game because you simply got hosed.
Yeah.
I mean, that would really stink. I really don't like it when games do that for you.
Right.
This game offers a lot of opportunities for the traitor to be, I call him the traitor, but for the infected to keep themselves secret and to do things that say, look, I wanted to do better. I mean, it's deliberately made that way, and I think it's going to meet the needs of a lot of people. So for me, I enjoyed it. I'm going to give it 1.5 infected thumbs up. That sounds like I got splinters. But I did enjoy it very much. I like the shorter time frame of it. I love the dice mechanism. Wish it looked a little cooler when I'm showing it to people, but it's good enough for what it is. I like it.
Yeah.
Cool. I like it as well. I thought it was an interesting game. I like the theme. I've said what I don't like already. It's mainly right there.
Yeah, we got it.
I'm going to give it 1 fully formed shield up. Shield up!
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just give this 1 almost dead thumb up. Because I want to give it a thumb up, but it's not quite there. If it hits the table, fine, I'll play it. But I would much rather play BSG or Dead of Winter or one of those other very similar kind of games.
Well, I'm glad, though, that a shorter version of those exists, because there really isn't one right now.
Right.
And so that, I think, is a good thing for a lot of people.
Cool.
That's Dark Moon. Which one of us is infected?
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.